we wanted to start with a prayer. Is Pam with us tonight? Yeah, that's what we want to do. Pam Hardy. Everybody knows Pam. Woo-hoo!
Everybody knows Michael, too.
He's asked me if I would lead tonight with prayer. First of all, I'm Pastor Pamela Hardy. Welcome to Faith Center. This is my church, and we are governmental. We are involved. Apostle Lyon has had us involved governmentally. I've been here for over 20 years. One of the things that he's always trained us, you vote biblically, not politically, according to the Bible, and that's how we roll. So, with that being said, I want to share something first, if I may, just a quick minute. How many of you have heard of Doug Sheets? Well, I have been a following of Give Him 15 for some time. And I want to read something that he stated that will encourage you. This is quoted by him. This is quote unquote by him. I have great hope for America because the depth of a fall never determines God's ability to restore. I'm not afraid of the powerful strongholds because size and strength are completely irrelevant when measuring His ability to deliver. And I'm not intimidated by statistical odds, whether of success or failure. They cease to be relevant when God is involved. His limitless ability negates the very concept of odds and triumphs over all other winning hands. So, Father, we just thank you. We thank you that we live in the land of the free because of the brave. We are grateful, Almighty God, to be able to have liberties and freedoms, to be able to gather, and to uphold what still our foundational fathers meant and purposed our country to be as constitutional citizens of the United States of America. Lord, we ask for your wisdom, your understanding. We open our hearts to hear so that we may grow more in our understanding of our responsibility as citizens in the United States of America. And we do declare that we are and will continue to be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Awesome. Okay, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. On my lead, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Oh, yes, on your feet. Thank you. Wow, I heard that. Man. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, can we sing God Bless America?
We don't have time. Sorry, yes. Oh, my gosh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could, you want to, yes, have a seat. We are going to bring our speaker in for the night. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to the stage, Jeremy Ramsey!
Thank you. So a lot of you know me here, and I'm going to introduce myself. Now, I'm Jeremy Ramsey, attorney at law. Before we get started, I have read the book of Revelation, and sorry, a Christian attorney is not the sign of the rapture and the coming apocalypse. I know, you can hope, but it's not. So I'm an attorney here in Rockford, Illinois. Well, I'm in Loves Park, Illinois, close enough to Rockford, so that you know who I am, and hey, we're sitting here on a Friday night listening to this guy talk. Does he know what he's talking about? I'm just telling you about me, not because I need to boost my ego. I mean, I am an attorney. The three things you need to be an attorney: illegible penmanship, to love the sound of your own voice, and a very large ego. You can be a doctor that way too, apparently. Anyhow, so I have been practicing law now for 20 years. Oh, man. I used to be a prosecutor, and I think about the sentences I gave to people, and I've apparently fulfilled 20 years of a punishment. So I used to be a prosecutor in the area. If I look familiar, it was many years ago, but if I look familiar and there's like a bad twinge to that, that I sentenced you to something. Maybe I don't look the same or something like that. Let's just leave it behind us, move on with our lives. I've been a judge advocate for the United States Army. I've been a college professor. I've been speaking to audiences for the past 15 years. And boy, do I hope I'm making a difference. I'm trying, but or my wife would agree with that. I'm very trying. But I've been speaking in a lot of churches. I speak at the Iron Sharpens Iron Men's Conference, and I speak about constitutional law and Christianity. So, those of you, next slide. Did it go? No, not yet. Okay, those of you who know me also know I'm an allied attorney with the Alliance Defending Freedom. Now, I'm going to give out a whole bunch of organizations tonight that I think that you should be aware of. It seems like every day I'm hearing of a new organization or something, so the list that I have, it keeps growing, and I got to figure out how to add more and more, of these organizations on. But I'm an allied attorney with the Alliance Defending Freedom. We defend First Amendment rights for Christians mostly, but First Amendment rights. There are two types of attorneys for the ADF. They have full-time attorneys, which, if you remember the Jack Phillips case, the Christian cake baker, which he's still getting sued. He's still in court. He's still having people coming after him. The newest one is a transgendered individual who wanted him to do a cake for their, announcing their new gender. That was the ceremony they were at. And he did. He said, nope, I prefer not to. But they came to him on purpose. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, the poor fellow, he won his case at the Supreme Court level, but all he did, sadly, in our world, is he painted a target on himself. So Jack Phillips, still being represented by the Alliance Defending Freedom, still in court on issues like this. So you have the full-time attorneys who are on the front lines doing stuff like that, and you got guys like me, and there are 2,000 of us around the world. We are allied attorneys. So what we do is we're local counsel, we're local attorneys. We make speaking presentations. We get involved in cases when we can, just to be the voice in the wilderness to defend First Amendment rights. Okay, if you know my presentations and you've been to one before, you're going to hear all my corny jokes and all my punchlines and stuff like that. So if you don't laugh, it's just because you just don't have a good sense of humor, or you've been to one of my presentations. And if I have a joke coming up and you know the punchline, don't share it because other people might not have heard it. I'm a big collector of quotes. You're going to see a ton of quotes from founding fathers and other historical people. I'm a big fan of the Wall Builders organization. Like I said, I've got a list later on of organizations I think you should be aware of. But the Wall Builders organization with David Barton, if you don't know them, you should know them. You should be listening to David Barton's radio program every day. You should be aware of his teachings, of what he knows. He knows more about the foundation of America than anybody else on the face of the earth. And so a lot of my quotes are from David Barton, one of his books, The Original Intent, one of the best books out there. Because if you don't understand what our founding fathers intended for our nation, you're part of the problem. Sorry to say. So, I like a lot of quotes. I have a lot of quotes. And I'm going to start with my first quote from the great theologian Linus Van Pelt, brother of Lucy, friend of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. Linus Van Pelt said, there are three things I have learned never to discuss with people: religion, politics, and the great pumpkin. Now, I will be honest, I'll get the little laugh on that one, but a couple things. One, I bring that up because it's October, and when else am I going to do a presentation and talk about the great pumpkin, and it can be applicable? My children, who have heard this presentation many, many times, and they're not here tonight. Why? Well, my daughter's in a play, so it's all good, but my children are like, okay, Dad, we've heard your jokes, a million times, but they like this one. Oh, Dad, talk about the great pumpkin tonight. So that's like the highlight of the presentation. The whole time they hear me speak, and then I talk about the Great Pumpkin. They're like, what'd you like? Hey, did you like my presentation tonight? Yeah, we've heard it before, Dad. What was your favorite part? Well, you did talk about the Great Pumpkin. Oh, okay. But this is a very telling statement, because if you go around in our world today, what's the two things people don't want to talk about, or that's going to cause a fight? Religion and politics. And that is unfortunate. If you wonder why the world's going the way it is, which is not the right direction, it is because we don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. I'll get on it later, but the church today is not talking about religion. Well, hopefully we're talking about religion and politics. But politics, I have been shot down by so many pastors for wanting to do a presentation about your constitutional rights. It's remarkable. And why are we going in the wrong direction? Is because we don't discuss these things. Okay, next slide. So, my first question to you is, what is going on in our world? Now, if you're like me, and you follow Understanding the Times radio ministry, Jan Markell, Olive Tree Ministries, I'm a big fan, and I'll talk about them later, but if you're like me and you're a pre-trib rapture kind of guy, then you're hoping we get out of here soon. I gotta be honest, I'm like, I thought we'd be out of here by now, to be quite honest. That pre-trib rapture idea, which I really like, yeah, I might be switching to mid-trib if something doesn't happen here soon. But if you've read the book of Revelation, if you've read Daniel, if you've read all these prophetic messages, these end-time messages, and you see what's going on in the world today, a lot of people are like, I'm excited. Hey, this is great. Me? Yeah, I can't say I go on that idea. I'm like, what the heck is going on? How can people think and act the way they are? How do we have politicians that do what they do and think that they're still godly people? I don't know. I literally am like, how do you not see the hypocrisy in what you're saying and how you're living? It's shocking to me. So, if you know the end times and you know the book of Revelation, you're going to say, well, none of this stuff is surprising me because this is the way that God has told us. Now, can I predict the end? Can I predict the day that we're going to get raptured? Can I predict the day that Jesus is going to return to this earth? Nope. Jesus himself said, when he was on this earth, he said, nobody knows, only God knows. But are we supposed to be prepared for this stuff? Yes, we are. Yeah. I love the story that Jesus tells about the bride and the bridesmaids. And he says that the groom and the bridesmaids, where he says, when the groom had not arrived yet, but the bridesmaids were out with their lanterns, and the ones that were prepared, the extra oil, they were still there when he came to get everybody. They were prepared. So I do not see anything wrong with being prepared. Would I like the rapture to happen today? Yes, I would. Is it going to happen today? I don't know. But is it wrong? No, I'm not one of those people that are like, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to, hey, just say my prayers, read my Bible, and I'm good because the rapture is going to happen. No, I don't think that that's proper. I think we're supposed to still fight the good fight, do whatever we can, spread the word until the rapture occurs. So, next slide. But before I get started on answering the question of what's going on in the world, I want to lay some foundations. Okay, there's some important things that we have to know. I'm going to be talking about a lot of foundational stuff in my presentation tonight. And the first is this, 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17. All scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. Charles Stanley, many years ago, gave a sermon where he held up a Bible and he said, if you want to run a country properly, there you go. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of the Constitution, the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, but if you want to run a government or a business or anything and have it be prosperous, you could run everything by the Bible. So, I talk to a lot of people who are not Christians, not religious, not believers, and here's a very foundational, firm statement I'm going to say. If you are going to put somebody in a leadership position with your business, with a family, with a government, and they do not have a healthy belief and fear in God, your organization is doomed. Okay? All I have to do is look to history, which, amazing how we don't study history anymore. Too busy knocking down statues, too busy scrubbing things from our history books because it might not be politically correct. But if you study history and you look at some of the fascist leaders of our world, Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Joe Biden, you'll find that those who did not believe in God made policies that literally led to the deaths of millions of people. Because if you do not have a healthy fear of God and you do not think that you are going to be held accountable to a higher being when you leave this earth, you're going to do things that you say, what does it matter? I made policies that led to the death of millions of people. Well, so be it. Everything was happy for me. Everything was good for me. So be it. So even if they're not a Christian person, but if hopefully they at least acknowledge God. Not hopefully they are Christian, but if they acknowledge God, you got a chance there, because they will have accountability. They will believe that they will answer to someone after their time on this earth. That kind of person has leadership qualities. If they don't, then my stance is you got to get away from that organization and that person, because they're going to lead to your downfall. So, but now, next slide. So here's a couple of scary things. 48% of Americans believe the Bible is not literally true. Next one. Only 42% of Americans believe God is the source of truth. Next one. 58% of Americans believe individuals decide what is morally true. Now, those are some scary facts, scary things to think about. I always use the story, if, again, just conditional love to all of you. Love, but, conditional. If I was going to take a break during the presentation, which I'm not, so don't get your hopes up. If you got to go to the bathroom, excuse yourself, everything's fine. But if I took a break during the presentation and I say, wow, it's Friday night, it's dinner time, I haven't had anything to eat, except for earlier in the day, I'm kind of hungry, I want to get out of here. There's all these cars in the parking lot, and they're gonna get in my way. And there's that stoplight out here that doesn't change green for us very often. So during the break, I'll save all your questions till the end. I'll go out to the parking lot and I'll take out my pocket knife and I'm gonna slash all your tires. Not mine, all of yours. Okay? I'm not going to do this, okay? Do not use this recording as some type of evidence against me in the criminal trial later. This is hypothetical. So I slash the tires. And as I go, I answer all questions, I hand out cards, I say, thanks for coming, I appreciate you being here, but I'm waving to you guys as I'm leaving the parking lot, you're all changing your tires. Have I done anything wrong? No. To me, for me, right? Because I'm happy. Because if I get to decide what is morally true, then have I done anything wrong? That's a dangerous thing right there. I promise I won't slash anybody's tires tonight. Maybe. I promise. But if you have a situation where you are not basing what is right and wrong off of a higher being, off of the Bible, off of God, you are doomed to failure. Next slide. So I want to go through some foundational things. Who gives you your rights next? Is it God or is it government? Now, this is, if you have not noticed, in the past 2 years especially, the problem with having the wrong answer to this question, then you got to wake up. When the whole COVID situation started, this immediately came to my mind, was too many people think that we get our rights from our government and not from God. And that is a huge problem. I was a college professor for many years until the liberally saturated collegiate world found out that I was a conservative Christian and just didn't renew my contracts. They didn't, fire me because then I'd have a lawsuit against them. But hey, he's on contract and he says things that we don't like to hear in liberal colleges. So my contracts wouldn't get extended. So unfortunately, I haven't been teaching in colleges for a while. But when I would present this question to my students: who gives you your right, God or government? The alarming number of students that would say government was staggering to me. Every year it got worse and worse and worse. So I was warning students, you do not get your rights from government. Government is politicians. I'm going out on a limb here. No, not on a limb, but somebody may not like this. Politicians are the lowest form of, if they qualify, human being out there. And the lowest form of politician is a liberal Democrat. It's my stage. I can say that. I'm exercising my First Amendment rights. But if you think that another person, a politician, gets to determine what is right and wrong for you, I am very sorry for you. I am sad and very sorry for you, and that's why things are going wrong. Next point. So, like I said, as I've been thinking about this over the past 2 years, government telling us what's right, what's wrong, who we can see, what we should put on our faces, what shots we should take. Politicians telling us to do this. I thought, well, gosh, has this been a problem in history? Again, are you a student of history? Well, it has been, but there's one in particular that came to mind. Next slide. In 1 Samuel 8, it says, when Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. The name of his firstborn was Joel, had 2 sons. And they were bad. So Samuel's a prophet in Israel, and he has 2 sons, and apparently they didn't take after dad. They became, very dishonest human beings, taking advantage of their position. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel and Ramah, and they said to him, you are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have. Next slide. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. As they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights. Next slide. And look at this, and we'll go through it quick. Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, this is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flax, and yourselves will become his slaves. Next slide, I think. Yeah. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. The Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. Does any of that, next slide, does any of that sound, next one, does any of that sound familiar? Did you pay attention to what has happened to you, especially in the last couple of years? When people were telling you, when politicians were telling you what to put on your face, what to put in your body. I've got to keep myself on track here, but the COVID situation, don't get me wrong, yep, I had COVID, I survived it. Yeah, it really stunk. For like 4 days, I was popping ibuprofen like it was candy. My wife had it, yep, she was pretty much knocked out, sleeping on a chair for like almost 10 days. But we've got these amazing things that God gives us called antibodies. And yeah, and then I haven't had COVID again. It's amazing. Nobody can get the flu anymore. Isn't that remarkable? We're about to approach another COVID season. They can? Okay, well that's good to know. I'm glad that we can finally get the flu again. But you have had people telling you what to do. You know, don't visit your family. You know, all the Zoom conversations we've had and all the, you know, I can remember having a Hanukkah party with my wife's family, and we were on screens, looking at the Zoom screen, lighting the menorah. And I was like, oy vey. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done, and why? And I went to school board meetings, and I talked to school board members and said, I'm getting off track here, I will rein myself back in, I promise, or somebody might have to rein me in. The same mentality that they used, the same playbook they used, this is my definite professional opinion, the same mentality that they used in the COVID situation is the same playbook, the same mentality that the Nazis used against the Jews. Okay? Divide people. Are you wearing a mask? Oh, you're not wearing a mask. You must want us all to be sick and die. Are you taking the shot? The shot that does not prevent the spread of COVID, and I don't care how many boosters you get, you're still going to get COVID. I've had more clients and people I know this year die from, not COVID, from these shots. They call it SADS, Sudden Adult Death Syndrome. And everybody's going, oh, what's the SADS thing? What's it being caused from? Shut up. You know, don't talk about it. Come on. It gives you, it's a protein spike. If you have any, now, I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you things I've researched and found out myself. If you had COVID and you have any type of cardiac issues, and you take the shot, you are significantly risking the chance of getting a heart attack, stroke, you know, all kinds of cardiovascular issues. I'm trying to think of another term there, but it's not coming. It'll come on later. Migraines. Good grief. Death. Okay? I know several people that were healthy people, no ailments whatsoever. Went and got their shots, got booster shots. They are now gone from this earth. And everybody, and I'm saying, well, I've asked family members, what happened? Did they have something wrong? Was there something going on? And they're like, we don't know. They just died. Now, if you want to get the shot, go for it. That's up to you. Me, I'm not going to do it. The masks, oh, I hated the masks. And they're probably going to come back at some point in time because we're approaching COVID season. Not flu season, COVID season. The masks, to me, were like the Nazis telling Jewish people, you have to put a gold star on. That's my statement, okay? Agree or disagree. If you want to wear a mask, if you want to get a shot, go for it. That's up to you. I don't support it. I have a real big problem with a politician telling me what to do and what to inject in my body. I have a real big problem with that. Next one. So, how did it work out for the people of Israel when they got a king? Not so good, right? All those things that Samuel warned them about, that the politician, the king, will take over all your lives, all your children, and will use it for their own benefit. Next. How has that worked out for us in the past 2 years? We have people telling us, again, politicians, people telling us how to live our lives, what's best for us. I remember J.B. Pritzker. I always goof up and almost say the other way of Pritzker, the not so flattering one. I won't say it because I'm being recorded right now, but there's a vulgar way of saying the last name. I almost slip up every time, sorry. It's appropriate, but I'm sorry if I slip up. I remember him doing a press conference when COVID first started, and he said, "I'm trying to protect you." Does he have the authority and the power? Is that part of his job responsibility as the governor of Illinois to protect us in the way that he seems fit? Last time I checked, the guy could get on the treadmill a little more often. Okay, next point. So why is this happening? Why are we having this situation? Why are we having government politicians telling us more and more what to do with our lives? Next point. Keep going. Scroll these all up. I'm going to talk about, now there are a lot of reasons why, one more. Yep, stop there. There are a lot of reasons why things are going on in the world today. I'm going to focus on 7 of them tonight. These are the things that when I've looked at the world and analyzed history and I say, what the heck's going on in the world? Why are things going poorly? I narrow it down to these. Next. Ignorance. Now, ignorance, you hear the phrase, oh, ignorance is bliss, right? No, that is not true. Ignorance is a plague. Ignorance is a problem. If I come in tonight, let me ask you this question. If I come into this room and I say, I am standing amongst a bunch of ignorant people, have I insulted you?
No.
No, I have not. I have not. If I come in and I say I'm standing around a bunch of stupid people, I'm at the Democratic National Convention. Sorry, Lord, I apologize. That's my opinion. Ignorance is the lack of knowledge about something. I always tell people the story. This is a true story. Years ago, my wife and I, we homeschool our kids. My wife is a mental health counselor. The poor saint that she is, to be married to me. And it's a good thing she's a mental health counselor, because boy, doesn't that come in handy for her. She was seeing clients. We homeschooled kids. Kids were younger. My daughter came to me. I think she was like 8 years old at the time, and she's like, "Dad, can you put my hair in a bun?" And I'm like, "Hamburger or hot dog?" And she's like, "No, twist it up, in a bun." Oh, I did my best. I promise you, I did my best. And for the first time, I was raised with 4 brothers, okay? So for the first time ever of putting a lady's hair in a bun, I thought I did a pretty good job. She looked in the mirror and went, "I just wait till Mom comes home." Yeah, I did it. So I am ignorant of fixing women's hair. Now, if I wanted to cure that ignorance, I could go practice, hopefully on, like mannequins or something. If there's anybody here who would be, the ladies who'd be brave enough and willing enough that if I took some, hairstyling classes and then said, "Can I try to cut your hair?" Oh, just don't. But ignorance can be cured through education. Stupidity, as the great theologian Ron Tater Salad White said, you can't fix stupid.
That's right.
Okay? And that's the real problem. But My favorite quote ever from President James Garfield. This is number one favorite quote ever. President James Garfield said, "Now more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress." He was, you could say, government there. Congress is part of the government, but Congress. And he said, "If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption." You want to know why things are going bad in our world today? You want to know why we've got ignorant, reckless, and corrupt politicians? Yep, because we tolerate it. Because I do not believe it is possible to be completely educated about everything. You're going to be ignorant about something. But is it something important enough that you're going to say, well, I'm ignorant about this, I need to study, I need to learn, I need to cure ignorance, so I'm no longer ignorant on that subject matter? How important it is it to you? Next slide. Samuel Adams said, "No people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders." Doesn't that sound like what's going on in our world today? We are ignorant. We are letting politicians who are also very ignorant, sometimes stupid, they're leading us. And our country is dying. The United States is dying right now. It's amazing to me, because they keep printing more dollar bills, that we haven't died already. Now, I'm going to use this from, this is from a Marvel movie. I think it's the second Avengers movie, okay? So, nothing, biblical. I'm sure you can find biblical stands for it. But there's the bad guy in the second Avengers movie, when he's trying to destroy the Avengers. He says, if you can get attacked from the outside, you can survive that. But if you decay from the inside, you're dead. Look at Japan, okay? We beat Japan in World War II outside another country. They have rebuilt. And now they're a very prosperous, very strong nation because they were attacked from a foreign invader, but they rebuilt. When you die from the inside, you're dead. And we're dying from the inside right now, and that's very alarming to me. Next point. Here's some scary statistics when we talk about ignorance in America today. 70% of American adults cannot name their senators or congressmen. More than half don't know the actual number of senators. Wait, hold on. How many senators do you have?
2 per state.
Yes, okay, thank you. 2 per state. Nearly a quarter cannot name a single right guaranteed by the First Amendment. I could test it on that one. I could say, name some rights in the First Amendment. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. I'll go over it later. 63% cannot name the 3 branches of the government. Good news, I'm going to go over all this stuff. When you leave here tonight, you will be more able and equipped to be a leader, a politician in our country than most of our elected officials today. So that's a good thing. Half of the native-born Americans couldn't correctly answer 70% of civics questions on the United States citizenship test. Now, I'm going to go back to my college teaching days. When I taught law classes, that's what I taught in college, I taught law. And I was teaching at the master's degree level. I taught some bachelor's degree level, but I taught master's degree level. On the first night of class, I would give my students 10 questions from the United States citizenship exam. What percent passing do you think I had in my master's degree level college courses when I was teaching at the master's degree level? What percent? What number? 20. Someone said 10. 50. 50, you're way too high. You are unrealistic. 15. You're way too high.
2%.
10, you're way too high. 8,
What?
you're high. My master's degree students who are failing the citizenship exam, I would have 2% who were passing it. And of the 2% who were passing, what students were they? They were my international students who were studying for the citizenship exam. So, master's degree level, as in, I hope they went to elementary school, they went to high school, they went to college, they are now in a master's degree program. And they are failing, and when I'm talking failing, I'm not talking like, oh, they got 60%. No, I would give 10 questions, they would maybe get 1 right. So they were getting a 10% on the quiz, but my international students were passing it with flying colors. Right there. How do you expect to have a nation, a country, a government with any success when you've got a failure rate of people who don't know what their rights are? That's why we're going down the proverbial toilet. Next point. So, how do you cure ignorance? Education. But, where are you getting your education from? Next one. The cure for ignorance in the Bible, 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. Oh, man, I was good right to that last sentence. I know. You be in prayer for me. I'll do my best. I can argue with the best of them, but some days at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I argued with that person. Did I win them over? Did I convince them? Probably not. So that's hard. You should know why you believe what you believe, whether it's theologically speaking or government speaking. But then, try to do it with gentleness and respect, and not like me with my liberal Democrat in-laws that I see up in Madison every now and then. Fun family gatherings. Oh yeah, Hanukkah's a great time. So, next point. I'm still laying foundations here. Well, I gave you the answer. What's the most important step of building a house? Foundation. Why? Because if you don't have a strong foundation, your house is going to crumble. This applies to anything else in this world. If it's your business, if it's your government, you have to have a strong foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, the whole thing is going to decay and crumble. And we're seeing that, unfortunately, although we have a strong foundation, but people aren't following that strong foundation, and our country is crumbling because of it. Next point. What's the foundation of our government? No. Very good. That's a good answer. Those of you who are saying the Constitution. Good answer. You're almost there. God, yes. Law. Law. We are a nation of laws. You need law. If you do not have law, you have chaos. And chaos destroys everything.
Good laws.
So,
Good laws.
and good laws, yes. Next point. Now, here's my question. Do the next one. When we're talking about laws. Are all laws moral? Is all morality legal? Yeah, we could ask this right away, the first day of law school, essentially. Well, are all laws moral and are all morality legal? Okay, well, I can bring up and I'll talk about it later in detail, abortion. Abortion is still, I'm getting into my other points, is still legal in many states. Is that moral? No. Taking life is not moral. I don't care how small the baby is. The opposite of life is death. You take life, that's an act of murder. You're taking life. That is not moral. Is all morality legal? There's a story years ago, this actual case. There was a lady who lived near a courthouse, And she would always, out her front window, she'd see people, rushing to court. They'd park in the meter parking. They'd plug the meter. This is in the day when we used to actually use coins. So they'd plug the meter. They'd run into court, probably late. They'd be there. Everybody, when I was a prosecutor, people used to always say, well, you're going to call my case up soon, right? If soon is 2 hours, sure, depending on how busy the courtroom is. So she would see these people plug the meter, run into court, but then the meter would turn because they were in there much longer than they thought. So she took it upon herself to be nice to these people, and she'd gather up all this change, and she'd start plugging the meters for people. Is that okay? No. Morally, yes. It was illegal. She was fined, she was given a citation, and yep, she was guilty. And she stopped plugging meters. Why? Because the county was probably saying, hey, we get more out of tickets than we get out of the meter. That's the truth of it. Now, as an attorney, if she could have somehow established an agency agreement with all those people, hey, you're about to run into court and you plug the meter. Quick, sign this power of attorney form, giving me limited power of attorney, and I'll plug the meter for you. You're okay. I should set up a shop outside. I should set up a booth like Lucy does, or like kids would do with lemonade stands if they don't get fined for those, where I could be like, just an attorney, giving out powers of attorney outside the courthouse. Plug meters for people. Just have a power of attorney. That's a brilliant idea. Wow. I just saved my law practice right there, right? I'm going to be making millions on limited power of attorneys. It was illegal. You cannot plug the meter for somebody else. There was a statute written. She was violating it. She got fined. Stop plugging the meters. So not all laws are moral. Not all morality is legal. Next point. So the question is, how do you have the law? Next point. I'm going to introduce you to a phrase called natural law. Next. Natural law, per se, is the foundational principles of right and wrong, which are both right for all and at some level known to all. Okay, this is our foundation. This is a firm foundation that you have to have. This is the idea of believing that God gives you your rights. I always tell people in my presentations, if I have a 2-year-old child here on the floor playing with toys, and I go up and I grab one of those toys from the child. Now, the child is going to react in a couple different ways. One, it's going to go, Attorney Ramsey, what you've done is you've committed a burglary. Now, under the Illinois statute, subsection whatever, I'm going to call the police now. You're going to have a citation issued against you. I will see you in court. If they're my kids, oh yeah. Not likely. What's the child usually going to do? They're going to scream, they're going to cry, they're going to say, no, mine. Because you took their toy. How do they know? How do they know that that's wrong? Well, I asked you guys the question before. If I go out and slash your tires so I can get out of here before everybody else. And you say, that's wrong. How do you know? Do you know because you looked up a law book? Because you look up the statute? No, because we are born with the inherent knowledge and right of what is right and wrong. We are born with the concept of natural law. Next point. Did our founding fathers know this? According to what we're taught in public schools, and what's definitely going on in public schools today, no, of course not. Founding fathers were all a bunch of atheists and deists, and they didn't believe in religion at all. Next point. Well, the Declaration of Independence says, when the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. Next one. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's a funny thing for an atheist to say. They understood this. They understood that you are given your rights by God, and that governments have power by the consent of the governed. If you are a huge Monty Python fan like I am, I've always thought, I like speaking at these events. I appreciate everybody who comes out to hear me talk. I don't often get invited back because apparently I'm controversial. But maybe if I talk in British, maybe if I was a Brit, people always like that, a British accent. Oh, it's sexy, right? Oh, we love that chap right there, he speaks British. So maybe if I talk like this for the rest of my time, then I will get thousands of people to come to my presentations, and I'll be invited back all the time. Spot on, thank you. So, I talk about my British stuff and I lose my thought there. So, the idea here with the natural law of the consent of the governed is that we understand that our rights come from God, that our founding fathers knew when they created the Declaration of Independence, they knew government doesn't tell you right from wrong. God gives you your rights. And the idea behind government, the reason why they created the Declaration of Independence is because they were saying we need to protect these God-given rights with our government, with the government that we are creating. But this is not taught in churches, and this is not taught in politics. When I say stuff like that, this is not being taught in churches, then I don't get invited back, right? Unless I do the British thing. Then I'm good. Okay, next. So, now here's my question. What's the supreme law of the United States of America? The Constitution. There you go. It is not judicial opinions. It is not what the Supreme Court says. It is the Constitution. Next. John Jay, first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, said, every member of the state ought diligently to read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. Okay, do you stop and think about that? Who is John Jay? Well, I got the answer right there. Is John Jay someone you learned about in school? Nope. I guarantee people will be like, if you ask students today, if I put it on a quiz to my master's degree student, who is John Jay? They'd be like, no idea. First Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I'm guessing he probably knows what he's talking about when it's about the studying of the Constitution. He was the founding father. He was there when the Constitution was being written. First Chief Justice. And he's saying that not only should he's saying you need to diligently read and study the Constitution. Why? Because then you'll know when your rights are being taken away from you. I'm a Jewish man, yes. I'm a Messianic Jew. It's all good. I believe in Jesus. I know who Yeshua is. I don't need a bridge illustration after the class, okay? I'm good. In my household, especially in December, kids are loving it. They get both Christmas and Hanukkah. Woohoo! You know? I don't double up on the presents. Nope. I'm like, no, you can get the Hanukkah presents from the in-laws, or you get Christmas presents from me. But the one thing about the Jewish faith that is being forgotten by the Christian faith, again, you know, if I get invited back again, nobody say I was anti-Christian or anything like that. Yay, Christians. But the Christian faith is failing on a lot of stuff that the Jews were teaching them. Was Jesus Jewish? Yes. Yeah. I was told by someone years ago that Jesus was Roman Catholic. Not the Roman Catholic church started several centuries after Jesus left the earth, but Jesus fulfilled the laws, fulfilled the promises, fulfilled the teaching of the Old Testament, of the Torah. Torah's first 5 books. But the Jewish people were very big, and still are very big, on tradition. You know, you hear in the Fiddler on the Roof, tradition. That's Jews. Jews like tradition. Most Jews don't accept Jesus, not because they study about Jesus, but because they feel like they're going against tradition. Most Jews. So, Jewish people do something that Christians don't do. They teach the children about, why do we have a Hanukkah? Why do we have Passover? Why do we have, does anybody know what Jewish holiday it is right now? No. Sukkot. Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. It was, we could still say Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, yeah, we're about the same time of year, but it's Sukkot. Do I build a tent, or a lean-to and a little tent thing out in my yard? No. I could, but no. But we, every year in my household, we have Passover Seder's. Always have Passover Seder. I love the Passover Seder's. But we have a Messianic Passover Seder, so we understand the story of the Exodus, but we bring it into how Jesus also rescues us from our sins. I teach that to my children because, and it was taught to me and it was taught to my wife. Why? Because I wasn't there when the Exodus occurred. I didn't see these things. I didn't see the parting of the Red Sea. I didn't see the fire on the mountain, stuff like that. I didn't see those things personally. Sorry to say. But the Jewish people knew that you should teach the upcoming generations about what God did for us. Because we're forgetful. And if you don't see these things, you go, what else on TV, right? So John Jay, and why I bring that up, because it's the same thing. John Jay is saying, you've got to read and teach and learn the Constitution. Teach it to the younger generations so that they know what their rights are and they're better able to defend them when the government takes them away from you. And we're not doing that. Next slide. The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. Patrick Henry said that. Does that sound familiar to any of you? It should, because unfortunately that's what's happening right now. Our politicians are using the Constitution to put us down, and it should be the other way around. Next slide. The Constitution. Here, we're going to go over them. 3 branches of government. I should test you guys. Hold on. Don't do it yet. You already know one.
Yeah.
Bring it up now. Article 1 creates the legislative branch, which consists of Congress and the Senate. Yep. How many representatives do you have in the House?
435.
What is it based upon? Population, yes. And then how many senators do you have? 2. Everybody has 2, called bicameral legislation. Almost made it so we didn't have the United States of America. Because some states, like Delaware, were saying, if it's going to be based on population, why do we even show up? Why do we vote? We've got a small group of people, we won't get representation. But then you had states like New York that were saying, well, why should Delaware have the same voting rights that we do? We have a lot more people, a lot more concerns, a lot more land mass than they do. So it actually almost destroyed our nation right there. But Ben Franklin, who was not known as a profound Christian, was one of the more deistic founding fathers, actually called for a day of prayer and fasting. You can find it. You can find out that Ben Franklin said, yep, we need to pray and fast for God to lead us. And after the prayer and fasting, they came up with bicameral legislation, and our country continued. What's the second? Oh, hold on. What's the second branch of government? Executive branch. Who's that? That's the president. In a state level, assuming your state is similar to your federal, Who's that at the state level? Governor, yep. They enact the laws. Legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch, they enact the laws. The executive branch is not supposed to make law. And we have been having that problem. Now I'm going to go right down the middle there. I'm going to say this is a problem on both the Republican and the Democrat side. Executive orders are unconstitutional. When you have a president, who arguably is still in the White House today, who says, I have a pen and a phone, and I'll get things done. Oh man. When Obama said that, I was like, is anybody else hearing that? That's tyranny. I have a pen and a phone. But every president for many decades, everyone has been doing executive orders. Governors, executive orders. We are still, last time I checked in Illinois, we're still under emergency mandate restrictions. Yeah, even though the cap of it was how many days? 30. There's a law. There's still a law that says the governor can't do anything beyond 30 days for emergency orders. We're on day 400 something, which is absurd. It's breaking the law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. When you start thinking you're above the law, you destroy a country. So the executive branch is supposed to enact the laws, not create the laws. Third branch? Judicial. Now, they're supposed to determine if laws created violate the Constitution. Again, they're not supposed to write laws. We'll talk about Roe v. Wade coming up and why it is not proper for the Supreme Court. I'm happy with the Supreme Court mostly right now, because the Supreme Court, thankfully, has mostly original constitutionalist majority in the Supreme Court right now. We'll see if that hangs on. That's our only branch right now that's really defending us and fighting for us. The other two, no, unfortunately not. But the judges are not supposed to create laws. If something goes against the Constitution, they're supposed to kick it back to the legislative branch and say, this violates the Constitution, start over. Okay, next. What form of government are we intended to have under the Constitution? See, but were you taught that in public school?
Yes.
You were? How was the deal?
I was taught that in public school.
Okay. What are most students being taught today, or what are you mostly hearing people on TV talking heads saying? What do they say? Democracy. Oh, are we a democracy? Well, what did our founding fathers say about that? James Madison, I kind of think he knew what the country was intended to be. He was there when it was being created. He said, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Next. Remember John Adams, the second president of the United States? I kind of think he knew what they were intending. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. Next one. This one's good. Ben Franklin. Democracy is two wolves in the land voting on what to have for lunch. Yeah. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Yeah, that one's great. It's important to know that. You know, I've had people say, oh, come on, Jeremy. Yeah, okay, we're a republic. So what? It's important to know that democracy is mob rule. About the same time that we were starting a nation, what was going on in France? They were having a revolt, they were having a civil war, and they established a government and a nation that was a pure democracy, and it didn't last long, and it ended in violence. In America, and this is why when I was telling you guys before, what's the foundation of America? You said it's the Constitution. I was like, yeah, you're close, but you're wrong. It's the law. A republic, whoops, go to the next one, sorry. see, I'm jumping ahead. A republic, which is guaranteed under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. The United States shall guarantee every state in this union a republican form of government. A republic values law first. And the republic also understands that those laws are written to protect our God-given rights. Democracy does not. Democracy is, well, what's popular at the time. And everybody votes for it, boom, there you go, you got law. That will ruin a nation very quickly. So, next slide. A republic is a state in which supreme power is held by the people and is exercised by their elected representatives, and which has an elected or nominated president rather than a monarch. They work for us. I did something earlier, yep, I shouldn't have done. I called our politicians, our government officials, I called them leaders. That's not the right phrase. One, because they make decisions, and I'm just like, how the heck did you do that? But two, in a republic, an elected official is a servant to the people. So when I talk about politicians, I shouldn't call them leaders. I should call them public servants. I should. Any government person, anybody who works for the government, is supposed to work for us. Now, that became a real big problem a couple years ago, and I think will happen again. I think it'll happen again. When you have the health department, which are appointed, not elected, and it's just Bob down the street, and he's saying, you gotta put a mask on. You gotta go behind plexiglass. You gotta, the one I always loved, you gotta go to a store, and the keypad where you punch in like your pin or whatever, we're gonna cover it in plastic. Because somehow that plastic is immune from everything that you've got on your fingers. If we took the plastic off and you just pushed the buttons, oh man, you've got all kinds of trouble with the plastic. I went, and it's still going on, but it's already, take another story here. I went to the recorder's office to file a deed for a client when the whole COVID stuff was going on, the big fiasco was going on. And everybody's got their mask on. Go in the building, put a mask on. I come outside the building and I take the, as I call them, face diaper. I take the face diaper off, and I'm thrilled to have the face diaper off. I turn and look as I'm leaving the government building, and there are employees of the government building that I was just in, and they got their mask pulled down and they're smoking their cigarettes. Okay, me, just a guy who thinks about stuff all the time, I'm going, so you're gonna put a mask on that really statistically does nothing to help prevent the spread of COVID. The masks don't help. It's been shown if you've got credible resources, masks don't help. So you pull the mask down, and then you'll smoke a cigarette. So you'll die of lung cancer, but you won't get COVID, right? Oh, yeah. That's government. That's government thinking right there. We need to get back to a point where we're saying, they work for us. They do what we tell them to do, and they need to do it. That's a republic. And sadly, we haven't been there in a while. What type of government do we have in the United States right now? It's always a pop quiz. It's always a good answer. But nope, not the answer I'm looking for. Not looking for democracy, although you could argue that. Good, pick the socialist. That's an oligarchy. What's an oligarchy? Is where you have too much power, too much wealth, too many resources in the hands of too few people, and they're mostly elected officials. If I ran for office and I ran for federal level senator or congressman, and I win, I hit the jackpot. I will never have to worry about the price of gas or anything like that, probably for the rest of my life, because the salary's good, but it's all the perks. How many elected officials came into office being middle-class people like most of us, and in a couple of years, they're millionaires? How the heck did that happen? Well, enough lobbyists, enough connections, you'll know how to invest properly and get all these perks. You're rich. That's not how it's supposed to be. Next. So, and another quote here. A lady asked Dr. Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy? A republic, replied the doctor, if you can keep it. And that's, again, our problem. Why are the politicians getting rich and taking all our power? Because we are letting them. We are ignorant. We are allowing corruption. Next slide. I want to talk about the 10th Amendment real quick, just to make a point here. Because it's the 10th Amendment is another one that, I mean, unfortunately our founding documents have been like shot through like Swiss cheese by our elected officials. The 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's a key thing. There's key points here that I'm, trying to get through a lot of stuff, taking too long with my stories, but I wanted to get some key points on the Constitution and some of the things I want to point out that aren't being taught in schools and most people don't know. If there's something that is not in the Constitution, do you let Supreme Court justices decide the fate of it? No. Do you let an executive order happen so that the president has his own pen and makes a decision? No. If there's something that's not occurring in your government, something that's not legal, it is supposed to go to the states to decide, or the people. And we've gotten away from that, and that's unfortunate. Next slide. Ultra Vires Act. What is an ultra vires act? Bring that up. It's Latin meaning beyond the powers. Describes action taken by government bodies or corporations that exceed the scope of power given to them by laws or corporate charters. When referring to the acts of government bodies, the Constitution is most often the measuring stick of the proper scope of power. I'm bringing that up. It's a Latin phrase. Yep, the legal profession love it so much that, gosh, they even bring the dead language of Latin around and still keep it going. It's on life support, but hey, lawyers keep it going. This is a key phrase that I want you to remember when we get back, as I'm predicting, into some form of COVID-related, probably, lockdown. I'm really quite amazed that with the elections right around the corner, that we haven't been put into some type of COVID lockdown again. But there's still time. Now, this came to me when I was sitting in a doctor's office, and he was asking me, how come I didn't have the COVID shot? And I turned and said, do you know what an ultra vires act is? Which of course he was like, huh? It is when you are doing something that you don't have the authority to do. So the doctor, by forcing something onto me that he has no right to force onto me, was committing an ultra vires act. I'm bringing that example up because when they lock us down again and tell us to put face diapers on and tell us more and more booster shots to get, do they have the right to do that? No. When J.B. Pritzker says, I'm trying to take care of you and I'm trying to make sure that you're healthy, and I go, where in the Illinois Constitution do you have the right to do that? We need to go back to that. When we hear things happening in the government, we need to go to the Constitution, we need to go to the Bill of Rights, we need to go to the law and say, what authority do you have to do that? And people, the government isn't doing that. They're just saying, hey, we control you, all you peasants. That was what I was talking about before. When I got off on my British kick, Monty Python. And Monty Python and the Holy Grail, sorry, the brain had to catch up. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There's a scene where King Arthur is going through the land and he talks to someone named Dennis. Okay? If you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, you know this. If you haven't, it's required learning. Okay? Required. And then I'll come back and I'll talk British like this, and then everybody it will be spot on again, right? Oh, it's no sixes and sevens. It's brilliant. Dennis tells King Arthur, he says, Harry King. And he says, the story of, the Lady of the Lake throwing him the sword, Excalibur. And he's like, supreme executive power comes from a mandate of the masses, not from some false aquatic ceremony. That is the basis of my presentation, right there. I could have put Monty Python up on the screen and said, do a mic drop and go, there, I'm done. Government only has power, only has rights, only can tell you what to do if it's legal. They have authority if it's legal. God-given rights, protected by the Constitution, and they have to follow that. So if you've got J.B. Pritzker saying that he went to some lake and pulled a sword out somewhere, and that's how he got his power, because it was a God-given sign, I'd be like, okie dokie. There you go, it's a God-given sign. I doubt it. If, most of our politicians, you talk about going to a lake, well, most of them gone to Jeffrey Epstein's island. How come John Roberts has photos of himself there that he keeps being used against him when he makes decisions? I didn't say that. So, you need to know this. Ultra-Virus Act. If just for the fact of when someone tries to tell you what to do coming up, you can at least go to them and stump them. Like my doctor was going, when I say, do you know what an Ultra-Virus Act is? It's that they can't do it unless it is permitted by law. Our government is doing ultra-virus acts all the time. Next slide. Okay, this phrase. So we talked about ignorance. Hopefully we talked enough about ignorance. You've been cured of ignorance for our constitutional rights. Next one, separation of church and state. It is a phrase, my question, where's it from?
Letters to Madison. Madison's letters.
See, you guys all take my thunder. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Bill of Rights. Are you taught that in school? Nope. It was an 1802 letter from Thomas Jefferson to a committee of the Danbury Baptist Association. Where was Jefferson at that time? He was in France. So they were penning, they were debating, they were writing the First Amendment. The Danbury Baptist Association was saying, we're concerned. Are we going, do you know, when we were colonies, there were government-supported religions in the colonies at that time. You had the Anglican Church of the Connecticut colony, or the Roman Catholic Church of the Virginia. I'm just making things up. There were government-supported churches, and there were laws. And it actually, there were probably pastors that were like, this is cool, because if you didn't go to church enough times, you got punished. And you had to be essentially a servant of the church. You had to clean the pews, you had to vacuum, although they didn't have vacuums back then. But you had to do all those things to serve the church if you weren't there every Sunday. Man, some of the pastors in the world are going, how do we get that going again? So they were saying, are we going to have, now that we've got a new nation, you're right, your laws, are we going to have a certain religion that has to be legally followed by the United States? And Jefferson wrote a letter back to him, next point. First use it, keep going. Where he wrote a letter and he said, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only, not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no laws respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. He was saying, our government will never prohibit you from practicing your religion. But now it's been reversed. Now it's, you can't have religion in government. You can't have an elected official who, heaven forbid, says what their religious beliefs are. They're crucified now. No pun intended there. Next slide. But under the First Amendment, so you actually see the language, bring that up. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. There's always this problem in our laws and in our founding documents, punctuation. Politicians can't get punctuation. Supreme Court justices apparently don't understand punctuation. That's a comma. Shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, comma. Which means you don't stop. It's not the end of the sentence. It's like taking a breath. You're saying something, and then you continue. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, of the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The Supreme Court and most of our politicians have so focused on the first part, no law respecting an establishment of religion. So you can't have religion in politics. Baloney. That was not what they meant. They meant, hey, we can't have the Anglican Church of the United States. We can't have the Catholic Church of the United States, a government-funded, a government-supported, a government-enforced religion. But then they go, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Nobody focuses on that one in our Supreme Court and our elected officials nowadays. It's better with our Supreme Court now, but they've caused, the Supreme Court, in their wrong reading of the First Amendment, have caused considerable damage to our nation. Next slide. So our founding fathers, who again I think know more about the government than the elected officials today, what did they think about it? Well, Benjamin Franklin, who wasn't the most noted Christian, more of a deist, said that wise men have in all ages thought government necessary for the good of mankind, and that wise governments have always thought religion necessary for the well-ordering and well-being of society. Funny for an atheist to say. Next. John Jay, there he is again. First Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said, Providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is the duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers. What? A politician, the first Chief Justice of the United States, said that we're a Christian nation? Oh, he must not know what he was talking about. I think I remember, here we go again, Barack Obama telling us that we were not a Christian nation. And clearly he must know more than just some farmer way back, 200 some years ago, right? And then he says, and prefer Christians for their rulers. Wow. Now, like I said at the beginning, who are your leaders, public servants? Who are the people that are going to promote prosperity in your government or your business? Well, John Jay said right there, you better have Christians for your rulers. Shocking. I don't remember being taught that in school. Next slide. George Washington. I hope you know who that is. George Washington said, while we are zealously performing the duties of good citizens and soldiers, we certainly ought not to be inattentive to the higher duties of religion. To the distinguished character of patriot, it should be our highest glory to add the more distinguished character of Christian. George Washington was saying, now, when you think patriot, I'm hoping that of the top 5 people that come to mind for you, I hope George Washington's one of them. George Washington is saying that even more important than being a patriot is what is more important is the more distinguished character of a Christian. I don't remember being taught that in public school. He said it. You can Google search it. You can check me on it. George Washington said this. Next one. Patrick Henry said, it cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians, not on religions, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ. For this very reason, peoples of other faiths have been afforded silent prosperity and freedom of worship here. I always ask people, as a Messianic Jewish man, if I go over to Iraq today, and I wear my Messianic Jewish tie tack, and I have a yarmulke on, and I'm carrying a Bible, how well is it going to go for me? Would you predict?
Well, you won't have a head.
Probably not too well. But in a Christian nation, we have people of all kinds of faiths. And what do to them? We welcome them. It's our job, the Great Commission, to teach them the gospel, but we welcome them with open arms, give them taxpayer-funded health care and free cell phones. So there you go. So I always ask people, what's bad about saying you have a Christian nation? I literally, to atheist people, atheist students that I would ask them, what's bad about saying you have a Christian nation? I have yet to get a good answer from that one. Because a Christian nation is a welcoming nation, is an accepting nation, but we're supposed to teach the Great Commission. Because hopefully we can do better on that. Next point. The judicial branch. Go ahead. So I'm talking about, again, things that are ruining our country right now. John Adams said, "Judges, therefore, should be always men of learning and experience in the laws, of exemplary morals, great patience, calmness, coolness, and attention. Their minds should not be distracted with jarring interests. They should not be dependent upon any man or body of men, as in they should be impartial." The whole Supreme Court justice situation of being appointed, let's be honest, are you a justice who's more a Republican or more of a Democrat? That's not supposed to be happening right now. You shouldn't have, but it's an important thing. Supreme Court justices serve for life. They usually don't retire. They die before they retire. And if you're going to have someone who's on the bench they keep appointing younger and younger people. You're going to have someone on the bench who's there for 60 years, and they sway the way of a Democrat or Republican. That's that president's term going on for a long, long time. So it's a dangerous situation. Next slide. The candid citizen must confess that the policy of the government is to be irrevocably fixed by decisions of the Supreme Court. The people will have ceased to be their own rulers. Abraham Lincoln said that. That's happening right now. The Supreme Court is making laws from the bench, which they shouldn't be, and then we are no longer our own rulers. Next point. Elena Kagan, current Supreme Court Justice, said judges will often try to mold and steer the law in order to promote certain ethical values and achieve certain social ends. Such activity is not necessarily wrong or bad. Wow. And she said this during her appointment hearing before she was a Supreme Court Justice. That phrase right there, and I didn't make this up, you can find these on your own. That phrase should have invalidated her from being a Supreme Court Justice. Just like that. If you're going to say that you're going to steer the law in a way that you feel it's a certain ethical value that you see, you are a tyrant. You should not be on the bench. But she's serving on the Supreme Court right now. Next slide. April 9th, 2021, President Biden ordered a study of adding seats to the Supreme Court, creating a commission that will spend the next 6 months examining the politically charged issue of expanding the court and instituting term limits for its justices. Term limits, sure, I can agree with that, I can get behind that, for any politician, any judge or justice. Next. What did Biden say in 1983 about FDR wanting to expand the Supreme Court? Anybody remember? FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, said back that he wanted his New Deal to be pushed through. And thankfully the Supreme Court stopped a lot of it. Thankfully, the New Deal is being always professed as, this great thing and it saved America. Nah, it was socialism and communism coming into America. FDR wanted more in the New Deal. The Supreme Court stopped it, and FDR went, I'll just stack the court. I'll put more Supreme Court justices on so then I get more of my New Deal in. Joe Biden said that when FDR proposed stacking the court and getting more Supreme Court justices, Joe Biden said it was a bonehead idea. The bonehead, referring to a bonehead, because he's now saying, I'm doing a study to see if I should add more Supreme Court justices. And yet in 83 said it was a boneheaded idea. Next point. Is this going to happen? Next slide. Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. The case that took down Roe v. Wade. Next point. But, did it? Has abortion been declared illegal in the United States? No. No. Now, let's do a little bit of an analysis here. Well, no, I shouldn't have brought that one up. No. Roe v. Wade, whether, a person is politically charged on it, ethically charged, whatever, Roe v. Wade, legally speaking, was an improper legal decision. Okay? It was the Supreme Court justices writing laws from the bench. When you have 5 human beings, even though they may not think they are, they think they're above all of us, when you have 5 of them deciding the fate of a nation compared to what the people want, that's tyranny. So, the 5 Supreme Court justices who said, yep, a woman can have an abortion, what did they base it on? They based it on the 14th Amendment. Is the 14th Amendment, was it written for abortion purposes? No. The 14th Amendment was written to address the issue of slavery. Just when the Civil War was done, Emancipation Proclamation went through, the 14th Amendment was written to say, well, there are still some states that are not honoring some of the decisions made at the federal level. You have federal law, you have state law. And sometimes, like I showed you the 10th Amendment, a state should be deciding things, not the federal government. The 14th Amendment comes around and you say, no, federal laws apply at state level also. And they used the 14th Amendment in Roe v. Wade to say it is a liberty right of a woman to get an abortion. What about the liberty of the child, is my question. But, now, rightly so, in the Dobbs case, the Supreme Court said, okay, Roe v. Wade is done, we're kicking it back to the states, which under the legal analysis in the 10th Amendment is the correct decision. But abortion's not done. Illinois, yep, and what's going on in the election right now? What happened in the debate last night? What was the key thing that the Democrats are striving for? Oh, if you vote Republican, you don't care about women. That's going to be their mantra. It has been and will be. Next point. The Roe v. the Jackson case was leaked. It was leaked. The decision came out before, how it was going to be ruled came out before. Has that ever happened before? No. Do you find that extremely convenient or inconvenient that it was already announced what that decision was going to be before the decision came out? I do, because they were using it for political purposes, and that's never happened before with a Supreme Court decision. Who did it? We don't know. Still, there's an investigation. We don't know. We should know. Next one. 10th Amendment. So I talked about that. That's why I'm here. Go ahead. 10th Amendment means it should have been decided by the states. Go again. I see I jumped ahead. Go again. I did all that stuff. Liberties, yep, go ahead. So that's my question to you is, how is this going to impact the 2022 elections? It's already happening. Democrats, this is the drum they're beating on. Oh, if you support the Republican candidate, you don't care about women. You're in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade. One, you should be in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade because don't take human life. Two, as a legal-minded person, Roe v. Wade was decided incorrectly. The 14th Amendment was not there for abortion rights. If the 5 justices said, oh, abortion should be allowed, then they should say, well, we're going to kick it back to the legislative branch, or we're going to kick it back to the states and let them decide. So Roe v. Wade was a disastrous train wreck of a legal decision from day one. Next slide. We did the 14th Amendment. Okay, now I'm going to attack churches. Sorry, if you're a pastor or affiliated with a church or a ministry, yep, you gotta hear this. You've gotta hear this. This is again why I don't get invited back, but I'll do the British thing again. Not right now. Next slide. Johnson Amendment. Okay, here, just keep going. The Johnson Amendment, a 501c3. If your church or your religious organization is a 501c3, you have taken the snake oil. Okay? You have let Satan come into your church building in exchange for money and have said, we won't say certain things because we want money. Because the Johnson Amendment proposed by President Johnson, which in his defense, he said, I never intended it to be applied to churches. He was trying to shut up First Amendment rights of political groups, which is outrageous. But he's like, nope, I never wanted it to be applied to churches. Keep going. But know this, real quick. A church does not receive income. A church receives gifts. So do you need to be a 501c3 as a church? No, you don't, because you receive gifts. Before 1954, that's how it was treated. A prosperous church didn't have to do all this stuff because it was a gift, and it still is. The Alliance Defending Freedom has filed over 2,000 lawsuits. I shouldn't say that. They wanted to file 2,000 lawsuits. They have recorded pastors speaking on political subject matters, have recorded them, have mailed them in to the IRS. Over 2,000 sermons have mailed into the IRS going, bring it on. Come on, here's a pastor talking about politics, right at the pulpit. Are you guys going to sue us? How many lawsuits have been filed? Or how many lawsuits came up? Zero. Because the IRS knows they can't win this one. You can't tell a church what they can and cannot say. Just because you're 501c3. Keep the next slide. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, what about a 508c1a? Oh. Many of you probably don't know about this. You should know about this. If you are part of a ministry or a church, you should check out 508c1a. It is a tax-exempt allowance where you can be a church, you can still be tax-exempt, and you don't have the restrictions that the 501c3 puts on you saying, well, you can't talk about politics. 508c1a, next point. Keep going. Keep going. I always put this out there to pastors and churches who say, understand, there's a little bit of a thorn in the side for me. I want to speak at churches because the church is the last hope we have. It is the only hope we have. We should be talking politics at the church because that's the one and only safe place and the most important place to be talking about politics. But I get pastors all the time that say, nope, 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 nope. You're not coming to speak here. We don't want to hear about political stuff. If you get to the key point, this is my thought on it, is the pastor who's saying, nope, we don't want you speaking about politics, it's this. I'm saying to them, who is your master? Jesus said, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Pastors, most, not all, but most pastors don't want to hear politics at the pulpit because they're going to say, if you have that, you're going to upset people. You're going to make people unhappy because of separation of church and state, which is not in the Constitution. And people are going to stop coming to our church, and we're going to lose our 501c3, and we're going to lose money. That's the answer. Jesus answered it right there. So if you're going to devote yourself to the 501c3 and say, well, we're 501c3 and we're not going to talk about politics because we don't want to lose our tax exemption, who's your master? Who are you following? Next slide. Clergy in America. Next slide. Back in colonial times, President John Adams stated that pastors were the primary reason for America's independence. The British Parliament dubbed the phrase the Black Robe Regiment for the multiple pastors who inspired and led their congregations in the American Revolution. So understand, and I'm kind of going on that 501c3 thing again, that so get the importance of this. Our second president of the United States, one of our founding fathers, when he was asked, how did America come into fruition? He said, clergy. He said, pastors. People are asking me all the time, Jeremy, there's so many things wrong in the world. What do we do? There's so many things wrong in our country. What do we do? Our founding fathers said, you better go to church and you better hear what's going on in the world. Not, we better go to church, but you're not going to really hear anything good there because they don't want to violate their 501c3. But that's what's happening right now. Years ago, I talked to a pastor where he was a youth pastor at a church in Rockford, and I asked him, I said, hey, I've got a whole library of DVDs from David Barton from Wall Builders. Your high school students who are about to go to college and are about to lose their faith because the amount of high school students that go to college and lose their faith, it's staggering. And I said, would you let me, or you can do it, would you present these DVDs from David Barton and Wall Builders about our constitutional rights, about our God-given rights under the Constitution, would you present those to the high school students? And he went, Jeremy, I just want to preach about the love of Jesus Christ. Which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting that down. But I was like, that's the problem right there. Because a pastor, don't get me wrong, you can get in front of a group of people and you can talk about the gospel and about what Jesus did and overcoming our sins. Yes, all good. But if you aren't up there talking about what's going on in our world today, what's going on in our government today, you are failing your church. You're failing all of us. And the founding fathers said, we became America because of pastors. So when you're saying, well, what do we do, Jeremy? How do I get things changed? How do I get the world to go in the way that it should go? Get a pastor, for a lack of a better term, get a pastor with some cojones. Okay? I could have said much worse. But find a pastor with a spine. And they're hard to find. They're hard to find. Next slide. I get this usually. We don't discuss politics in our church. It divides people. Next. There's a pastor's letter for Planned Parenthood. God bless you as you have an abortion. Actual letter. I'm not making this up. United Church of Christ pastor blesses Planned Parenthood after it sells aborted babies. If you don't think they sell aborted baby parts, after finding out that they tested the COVID shots against aborted baby cells, your head's in the sand. You gotta get it out. So people who say, oh, Planned Parenthood doesn't sell aborted baby parts. Yes, they do. I got a lot of people, a lot of religious exemptions to save their jobs. I wrote hundreds of letters, hundreds and hundreds of letters last year for people to save their jobs. Because I said, are you pro-life? Yep. You against abortion? Yep. Guess what? You got your silver lining. They can't force you to take the vaccine, the shot, because it goes against your religious freedom. They tested against aborted baby cells. I saved people's jobs. And all I got was a couple thank yous and a box of steaks. That's good. I'm good. I did the right thing. Next slide. Political correctness and fear. Big problem in our world today. Next one. What does political correctness create? Next slide. It is intolerance and suppression of the First Amendment. No doubt about it. I have been labeled as an intolerant person. I'm just amazed by it. And what did I do to earn that label? I defended my First Amendment rights. I supported my rights as a Christian. I supported my rights as a conservative. I said things like, I don't support abortion. I don't support taking human life in the womb. I'm an intolerant person. I support the definition, God's definition of marriage, one man, one woman. I'm an intolerant person. That's amazing to me, how intolerant I am. I don't remember being mean or treating anybody poorly for anything. But if I have a viewpoint that's conservative Christian, I'm intolerant. According to the political correctness people. The part of being woke, oh man, If you haven't already been alarmed by this, you should be. We can't say or do anything anymore without worrying about who we're offending and if we might end up in prison for it. I'm not joking. There's a teacher in Ireland? Yeah, Ireland right now, who he's serving time in jail because a student wanted to be referred to as they, them. And he said, no, you're a male. I'm going to reference you as a him. He's in jail right now. Because the school board said, you're going to do this. He said, no, it goes against my religious beliefs. He's in jail right now. If you think it's going to stay there, it's not. It's already here. All these girls. Where are the feminists nowadays? Where are the feminists who are saying, I don't want a man in the locker room? When I was in high school, I'm just being honest here. When I was in high school, I was a teenager, if the school would have said to me, locker rooms are open to anybody, I would have been like, woo-hoo-hoo, I'm going to that girl's locker room. Because, yep, I'm a young man with raging hormones. Now, they're saying that. But it's because you need to accept these people. If you're born with a penis, you're a man. You're a man. If you're born with a vagina, you're a female. Done. 9 more. Target. Is anybody still shopping at Target? Okay, now there's tons of companies and stores out there nowadays. It's a challenge to find anybody that you can spend your money at. But Target was one of the pioneers of this whole thing. Target stores were the first ones to say we're going to open the women's restrooms and women's changing rooms to men. So if you're still shopping at Target, you shouldn't be. But then again, you could say to me, well, where should I shop? And I go, Mike Lindell only sells so many things in my pillow. Hobby Lobby only sells so many things. And I can only eat at Chick-fil-A so many days a week before I get tired of it. So it's hard to find an organization that is not woke. Remember when we used to be funny? Do you remember that? I used to always say to people, I'd say, in conversation, I'm Jewish. And they'd say, are you really? And I'd say, well, you're looking at me from the front. But if I turn here, that's insulting. To me, as a Jewish man, apparently I can't say that. It's insane. Next slide. My question to people with political correctness is, what are you afraid of talking about? And pastors especially, keep going. All these things. Stop. No, go back. Pastors. Again, I'm going after the pastors. There are so many pastors who don't address these subject matters. When Roe v. Wade was turned down, why were pastors around America not the following Sunday morning talking about the fact that I'll share it with Darren Bailey, and I'm Jewish, a Holocaust that was happening against babies in America? How come pastors weren't talking about the fact that it was overturned? Because the church that I was going to, they didn't talk about it the Sunday after Roe v. Wade was decided. Not one word. How come pastors aren't talking about when homosexuality, courtesy of the Supreme Court, became legalized in the United States? How come pastors weren't addressing that? Why aren't they talking about divorce issues? Illegal immigration. That's a huge problem in America right now. And why aren't pastors talking about that? About welfare, politics. Are they afraid of losing money? We go back to 501c3. But then I ask every pastor, because a pastor, when you stand up at the pulpit, you're supposed to be the representation of Jesus, correct? Jesus with skin on, that's a pastor. I know no one's perfect, but if you're going to take that position of being a leader of the shepherd to the sheep, you're the signification, the representation of Jesus. Was Jesus afraid to talk about those issues? No, he was not. He hung out with the sinners, with the tax collectors, with the prostitutes, not because he was like, you guys are having a great time. I'm hanging out with you. No, he hung out with them and he taught them and told them what you're doing, God doesn't want you to do. You need to change your life. Where are my pastors talking about this stuff? Next point. This is my definition. Okay, go ahead. Political correctness is a term used for whiny, oversensitive, tree-hugging pansies who need everything sugar-coated. That is the gospel according to Jeremy Ramsey. Can't be funny anymore. Can't talk about anything anymore. I'm not supporting his religious thoughts or anything like that, but have any of you ever seen Ricky Gervais? Comedian? Okay, I'm not supporting a lot of the things he said, but man, he's hilarious, and he's not afraid to be like, you know what, I'm telling jokes. I'm telling jokes. I don't support most of what he does, but we can't say this stuff anymore, because you might offend somebody. Good grief. Next slide. So, fear. How many verses in the Bible does God use to instruct us to not be afraid? 365. Yep, 365 passages in the Bible about not being afraid. Instructions from God. Next one. How many days in the year are there? Oh, there you go. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Pastors are failing. In large part, churches are failing. Again, along with my Monty Python thing, there you go, there's politics right there. I could answer you another question. Why is the world going wrong? What's going wrong in the world? I got an answer for you. Pastors and churches, they're not doing this. Why? Because they're afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid of losing money. They're afraid of offending people. They're afraid. And Jesus said you can't worship two masters. And God tells us 365 times, don't be afraid. I get. I have been subjected to anti-Semitism. Yep, I've had people say negative things about being Jewish, which I'm just like, wow, how stupid is that? I get that. I get when you're an unpleasant person. But now it's to the point that you can't say anything. You can't have an intelligent discussion with someone where you might have a differing viewpoint, even if it's backed up by facts or statistics or anything like that, because you might offend them. If you offend them, you're afraid. You're afraid to say anything. And that's a problem. Next slide. Charles G. Finney, pivotal in the Second Great Awakening of the 1880s, I love this quote he said, if immorality prevails in the land, the fault is ours in a great degree. If there is decay of conscience, the pulpit is responsible for it. If the public press lacks moral discrimination, the pulpit is responsible for it. If the church is degenerate and worldly, the pulpit is responsible for it. And I'm talking about pastors again, next part. If the world loses its interest in religion, the pulpit is responsible for it. If Satan rules in our halls of legislation, he's been there for a long, long time. The pulpit is responsible for it. If our politics become so corrupt that the very foundation of our government are ready to fall away, the pulpit is responsible for it. Let us not ignore this fact, my dear brethren, but let us lay it to heart and be thoroughly awake to our responsibility in respect to the morals of this nation. So here's Charles Finney answering the same question that I'm answering for you guys. Why is the world going in the wrong way? Why is our country going in the wrong direction? Because the pulpit is responsible for it. The church is the one and only and last place that we can save our nation. And the pastors are failing. Why? We don't discuss religion and politics. We don't want to offend people. We don't want to lose our 501c3. Just flush the toilet and watch everything go down while you're saving money and having... Chuck Swindoll, real quick, yep. Chuck Swindoll was a pastor who I admire greatly. He gave a presentation at Dallas Theological Seminary, and Chuck Swindoll, in a graduation ceremony, said to students who were about to go into the ministry, he said, you have two choices in this world as a pastor, as a member of the ministry. You can preach the truth, and the numbers will be, you can preach the truth, and the numbers will be small. Or you can preach the numbers, and the truth will not be there.
Yep.
What are our pastors doing? Real quick question. Quick.
I have a question. It's not only the pastors, it's each one of us.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm telling you from, this is a personal testimony here. I've approached many pastors about this presentation, and I've been shot down so many times. It's like I'm back in high school asking for dates from girls. I'm married, she's beautiful, yeah. I don't worry about it. But the pastors and the pulpit are failing. They're failing. And that's why our country's going the wrong way. Next slide. Public schools. Also known as government indoctrination camps. Go to the next one. Fire your school board. Good, please. You want to get involved? You want to do something to change the world? You better run for school board. I spoke at several school boards last year, meetings. Oh, that was fun. I didn't have something better I wanted to do. I enjoyed getting in shouting arguments and being called names by school board members in Winnebago County. That was fun. I got in a very heated discussion with him after he called me, what did he call me? Like a phony attorney, something like that. That was what he called me, when I wasn't in the room, of course. But his name and phone number was on the website. So I called him, and we had a discussion. I tell people, I'm an easygoing, easy to get along with kind of guy, but I have an army voice. It swears a lot. It swears a lot and it yells. Yeah, the army voice was in its full glory when I talked to that fellow, because he insulted me when I wasn't there, and I did not care for that. And he was so arrogant and prideful that he wouldn't admit that he did something wrong. After being, getting the wrath of the army voice, he apologized to me. Surprisingly enough, he didn't want to. But he was like, what do you want? Essentially, I want an apology. You insulted me when I wasn't there to defend myself, I want an apology. Fine, I apologize. Okay, our conversation's done. He's on the school board right now in Winnebago County. School boards put your kids behind plexiglass. School boards put your kids with face diapers on. Suicide rates of children skyrocketed. For what? The COVID rate amongst anyone below the age of 17 was ridiculously low, and the survival rate was ridiculously high of those who got it. Was it worth putting your children through all that trauma? School boards, public schools, train your children to be government drones, to be mindless slaves to what the government wants them to do. You don't learn about our founding fathers. You don't learn about our Christian nation in public schools. You're told what to think, how to act. That's a public school. So next slide.
Very similar to Hitler's schools, right? Indoctrination.
Indoctrination. Next one. Homeschool. No.
Yes.
Homeschool. Here's a sad thing. Everybody was all angry. Oh man, when all the COVID stuff was going on and the lockdowns at the school and the face diapers were going and the plexiglass going, everybody's mad. They're showing up at the school board meetings and they're making impassioned speeches. And then the elections come around and all of a sudden everything conveniently goes away and Joe Biden goes on 60 Minutes and says, oh, COVID's over. Wow. Thanks, bonehead. So now, this just again, here's my opinion, this bothered me. I have many people, my phone, man, I have messages every day, all these voicemail messages. Protect my kids, what am I gonna do? How do I, defend me, Jeremy. And I kept saying to them, why are your kids in public school? Homeschool them. But then things lifted, and And yep, go on Facebook. About a month ago, what do I see all over Facebook? The photos. Hey, there's the kids' first day of school, first day to high school, first day to middle school. And I'm like, you're sending them back? Did you not learn? You have government authority figures to your kids telling them what to think, what to know, how to act, what to do every day. Perfect kind of people to be ignorant so that they don't know what their rights are. Homeschool. And now people say, oh, next slide. They say, well, gee, Jeremy, it's so hard to homeschool. No, it's not. No, it's not. Been homeschooling my kids from day one. If my children are paying attention and working hard, which they do, some days better than others, but if they work hard, my children can get through an entire day of school, 2 to 3 hours. You're telling me, and you can find statistics on this, how much teachers, public school teachers, spend time on discipline and non-education kind of things in the school day, that they need 8 hours. They are not educating for the majority of the 8 hours. You can educate your children, homeschool. There are plenty of resources out there that can help you. I know. I stopped taking math in 1994 because I hated it. And because when I went to college, knowing I was going to law school, I had to take one college algebra class. That was all I needed. That was all I was required of me to get my bachelor's degree. I took it. I did well. Surprisingly, I got A's. And I said, I'm done. Once math started including the alphabet, I'm done. Now, my children are going through all this stuff right now, and they would come to me. My wife is the math-minded person, but she'd be seeing clients. The kids would come to me and go, Dad, how do I figure this out? And I'm like, I don't do math anymore. I went to law school. And I would say, okay, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this equation or something. It's been a long time, since 1994. I don't know how to do this equation. But there's this amazing thing called the internet that apparently, Al Gore invented. There's this amazing thing called the internet. There's this amazing thing called YouTube, when it's not censoring you. And I found videos of people who are much smarter than me when it comes to math, and they were teaching things. And I was like, oh, that's how you do that. And I'd show it to my kids. That's how you do it. They'd go, oh, okay, Dad. At least you're smart enough to get a YouTube video going. Now, when I have parents tell me all the time, I can't homeschool, it's too hard. Again, lack of better terms, sorry, Lord. Shut up. Good grief. These are your children. They are a gift of the Lord, offspring, a reward from Him. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. If you can't find 2 to 3 hours of your day to educate your own children, compared to shoving them off on a bus or walking or whatever to a government indoctrination camp, why did you have children? That's my question. And I will go to the mattresses on that one. My son, my daughter it's going to happen for her soon. My son had a constitutional law class last year. Guess who taught it? Right here. It was the most quality constitutional law class any student could have. Because I taught it to him. And I don't expect it. No comments from you. It's all smart. And I taught it. He's more informed, more equipped of his constitutional rights than any politician in office today. And it was because I taught him, not because I shoved him off on some government employee. There is no excuse for this anymore. I've had someone said to me the other day, well, be salt and light. Have your kids go to the public school and be salt and light. Yeah, I agree. Fantastic. But guess what? When you're a 14-year-old kid and you got the bony finger of a, well-versed, many degrees professor pointing at you going, how can you believe that nonsense? I mean, if you got a Daniel, or you got a, David or a Jonathan that you're raising that is strong against them, fantastic. But most kids are going to be like, I'm just going to back off. And then they don't get taught the rights that they should be taught. Home school. Next slide. Oh man, I got to go. So yeah, I'm almost done. Yay! What are you going to do? Okay, so you came here tonight. Yep, happy to have everybody here. And love you conditionally. You came and listened to this Messianic Jewish guy talk about laws, talk about founding fathers, talk about our rights. So what? So what? You know, it's Friday night. You could be going out to dinner somewhere. You could be watching a football game. You could be going to a movie, something like that. So what? This is why I'm challenging you here. I'm hoping that you learned things here. I hope I educated you. I hope I entertained you. That's, education is my key goal. The entertaining hopefully came on the side. But what are you going to do? This is the biggest problem in our world today. What are you going to do? You can sit here and hear me tell you about all the bad things in the world. You know probably a lot of them. You go, what do I do? Next slide. There are organizations. There are many. I told you this before. I keep adding to this list. But there are many, many organizations that you can support, that you can follow, that you can get their materials. There are many out there that support the things that I support, that you should support as Christians. And you should get behind them. Next slide.
Wait.
Oh. So there. Now, here, sorry, I'm doing a commercial here. I'm doing a commercial. This is the only commercial you're going to get from me tonight. I don't get paid for these presentations, right, Mike?
That's right.
I thought maybe he changed his mind. No. I don't get paid for these presentations. I'm here on a Friday night doing this because I believe God has called me to be out there and be like Jeremiah, namesake for Jeremy, and warning people and telling people what you got to do. Okay, if you would like this PowerPoint presentation, I am happy to email it to you if you write legibly on the clipboard outside, and all I ask in return is some type of donation, please. You don't have to, but I would appreciate it. There's a lot of work that I put into this stuff. The other thing you can do, and this is my continuing commercial, okay? My commercial. I'm an attorney. I'm in Love's Park. The Apostle Paul was a tent builder to make money, and then when he had enough money, he went and did his ministry. I have a family of 4. I will not have enough money, compared to Apostle Paul, who was a single man. I apparently won't have enough money to just go out and do my ministry full time for another 375 years. Kids are expensive. So, I'm an attorney here in town. I specialize in estate planning, estate administration, right wills, trusts, powers of attorney. I get to play the referee amongst all the greedy relatives when you leave this earth, and I get to be the one holding everybody back so they get their checks, right? So I have to make a living. So who would you rather hire in the time of your legal needs? Some attorney out there who you found in the yellow pages or something like that, who doesn't know anything about God? Or would you rather hire a witty and charming, and handsome, and humble Messianic Jewish attorney who fears God? I'm just putting that out there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay? So, I'll give you all the list of all these resources and all the quotes and all the things like that. I'll give them to you. If you feel so generous, my brothers and sisters in Christ, to give me a donation for all my hard work, I would appreciate it. And then you'll have all the list. Okay? Bot radio. okay? You should have it on your phone because it will then allow you to listen to Wall Builders. Yep, David Barton, Wall Builders. You should listen to David Barton, Wall Builders all the time. And I'm putting a push in for Olive Tree Ministries. Okay? I like Olive Tree Ministries. I hope they're right and we're getting out of here soon, but I'm not giving up the fight yet. Now, I'm also going to put a plug in for the fellow who is the reason I'm here tonight. Michael. Hey. You understand? Okay? Michael's ministry. Now, this is a Wall Builders thing. This is a biblical citizenship class. Mike is going out to churches and should be teaching classes of at least 50 to 100 people each week. Should be. But he's going out to churches and dealing with what I'm dealing with. The pastor's going, we don't want to discuss politics. And Mike is teaching people biblical citizenship. There's an election coming up. Yeah. You've got to get involved. You've got to do what you can to impact the elections. I don't care if it's all the way down to dog catcher, all the way up to President of the United States. You've got to get involved in the elections. You should be a poll watcher. You should be a precinct committeeman. You should get involved with your local political offices. Now, every time I meet a politician, sorry, here I go again. I've met a lot of them. I shake their hands and I'm like, sorry, not all, most. But if I want to change that, if I want to see a politician who I say, well, this is a God-fearing person, I can get behind him, well, then I better do something with the local political party to make sure that we're promoting those kinds of people. Because if you think that politicians are concerned about your best interest and caring for you, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Okay? Most politicians are in it for themselves. And that's why the country's going wrong. We need to get God-fearing Christian people back into office who understand our foundations of America. And that happens with you getting involved. There's bottom one, Tactical Civics. I've just found out about this group. I can't say much about them, but it's a group that I'm going to get more informed in, more involved in. They're using like grassroots level laws to see how they can change the political stance in our world. So all good organizations. Next slide. Convention of States. I support this. I don't have enough time to volunteer to get as involved with them as I'd like to. But Article 5, Section 1 of the Constitution says the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments. We need to amend the Constitution. Term limits is the first thing that should happen. So that we don't have Dick Durbin in the office for longer than most people have been alive. Convention of States. You don't need a lot. If you can get like somewhere around, if you could get like 10% of your local board, your local politicians involved in groups like this, we could get a convention of the states called, we could have an amendment to the Constitution. It has never been done with the states. It, I believe, needs to be done. So I support this organization very much. Next slide. Okay. Someone asked me one time, they said, Jeremy, what's your life verse? What's your scripture verse? And I was like, do you need one? Is that like, I'm going to die someday, leave this earth, and I'm going to go to the gates of heaven? They're going to be like, what's your life verse? And I'm going to be like, we're supposed to have one? Oh man, where's the cheat sheet? But this guy said, no. He said, what's a passage of the Bible that you feel speaks very strongly to you? And I said, Matthew 7:21-23. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then will I declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Ooh, scary verse. Scariest verse of the Bible. If you go to heaven and you meet God, you meet Jesus one-on-one, and you say, look at all those things I did for you. And Jesus says, you didn't do this for me. You did this for yourself. Go away. Game over. There are too many Christians who fall in this category. Okay? Why is the world going bad? Why is the country going down the toilet? There are too many Matthew 7:21 through 23 Christians. I'm doing everything I can every day to not be one. You should all be doing the same. And we are not. The church is not. People are failing. And so there's a happy verse, it could be John 3:16 or something like that. No, that's the verse I quote to most people. You say you're Christian. Are you acting like a Christian? Are you doing things that Christians should be doing? That's my question. Next. So, keep going. Where is your circle of influence? What difference will you make? Are you a patriot? Mike told me about this event 2 months ago. Thank you again, Mike. Yep, he invited me. I'm the talent, right?
That's right.
Mike's the ministry.
Yeah, Jeremy!
Told me about this event 2 months ago. I put it on Facebook. I told people about it. Again, I love you on conditioning. But this place should be overflowing. There should be people here left and right. People always say to me, what do I do? Jeremy, I'm frustrated. Oh, I'm so tired of these politicians and the way the world's going. What do I do? I got answers. All of you are awesome, okay? If you haven't heard that today, you're awesome. Every one of you. Jesus changed the world with 12 men. Okay? And he didn't have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Jesus changed the world with 12 men. So I'm challenging you. You came out on a Friday night. You listened to me speak. Hopefully you were educated and entertained. But my question again, what are you going to do? This Messianic Jewish attorney who's been out there as the voice in the wilderness for now 15 years making these presentations. Sometimes I fill a room. Sometimes I get 5 people. God calls me to do it. I get opportunities. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing what I can to be a Jeremiah of my day and tell people that you need to repent and turn back to God. If I can do this, you can do things, and you can get the world turned back around. Next slide. Because 2 Timothy 4:7-8 says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. 1 Timothy 6:12. Fight the good fight of the faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called when you made your good confession in the presence of many witnesses. Fight the good fight. I'm trying. I don't accomplish it every day, I get that, but I'm trying to fight the good fight. Next slide. Because in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. We still have a chance. We do. But you've got to get involved and do something. Be a circle of influence. Educate other people. Tell your family. Tell your friends. Have a Messianic Jewish attorney come and speak at your church. Just ideas like that. And maybe we can turn things around before it's too late. Otherwise, I'm praying for a preacher of rapture. Get the heck out of here. Next slide. That's me, Jeremy Ramsey. Ramsey Law Firm. Yep, people say, Ramsey Law Firm, shouldn't it be, multiple attorneys? Yes, it is. Me, myself, and I. 3 of us. Thank you for coming out.